Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it's great. We get to talk about one of the really fun eras of Ohio State football today. An era I remember really well, talking about, this is a golden era of Ohio State football. Enjoy it. It'll never get better than this. And then it ended up getting better than that. And it may arguably get better than that again later this year. But get to talk the Jim Tressel era today, Tony.
Yes, we are. The last show we did the bringing some players over from the John Cooper era to put on this team, this current Ohio State team, to get them over the top. Today we move on to the Jim Tressel era to do the same. And there's some good names to pick from. And there are a lot of names to choose from. And again, Tom, I'll let you go first so that I know what you're thinking and where you're going. As I'm going through all of these names, it took me a while to get to the most obvious answer, and that's maybe because of the way Ryan Day has produced quarterbacks over the years. But anyway, I'll let you go first.
Well, I was just going to say, I enjoy the fact that if you're just listening, you don't know this, but if you're watching on YouTube, Tony has now a monitor behind him where he puts photos and stuff that's sort of relevant. And I'm looking at this and going, okay, I have that name on my list. I don't have that name on my list. So I can kind of cheat a little bit on this one. But I do not need to cheat to tell you that the number one answer on my list for the Jim Tressel player I would add to this year's Ohio State team would be Troy Smith. We did not really add, we got to Eddie George about 28 minutes into the last show, the last Heisman Trophy winner. This one, you do not need to wait very long to hear this Heisman Trophy winner's name. And, there were kind of like little caveats and reasons why we didn't necessarily put Joe Germain or Bobby Hoying very high on the list of Cooper era players. For Smith, I think, the accuracy is there. The mobility is there. He didn't run as much later in his career, but you certainly knew he could run, and that was something that other teams had to really fear and had to respect. And I think if you put Troy Smith on this year's Ohio State team, you've got, I think he would be fine in a Ryan Day offense. I think he would be, he probably has better wide receivers here than he did at times during his 2004 to 2006 career. Maybe not all of his 2004 to 2006 career, but during parts of his 2004 to 2006 career. The running back talent is probably better. This feels like a team that in his prime, Troy Smith would probably do some real good things for.
Yeah, although, he did play with 3 first-round wide receivers, a first-round running back in Beanie Wells, a 4th or 5th round running back in Antonio Pittman. So he's been around some weapons, which is also another reason why I think, boy, he would do just fine in this one. And we know they want to run the quarterback more. And like you said, he didn't run it as much in 2006 because he was throwing it more, and that was just the way the offense was operating, because he was better equipped to throw the ball than he was in 2005 and 2004, certainly. And yet he still only threw for like 2,500 yards that year, because that's Tressel ball, but it was enough to win a Heisman. I would love to see what he could do in today's game. And not that it was super long ago, but actually it kind of was now. As 2006 turns out quite a long time ago now. The year
2006. 2006 can buy a pack of smokes right now, Tony. It has been a hot minute.
So, Troy Smith. And I think the reason that it took me a while to get to him is because I was going year by year. And so, I guess I could have put him in there in 2004, 2005, but even a 2005 Troy Smith, I think would be really, really interesting in this offense. And that's where he was, 2004, he was just dangerous dangerous enough to get in trouble, get a bunch of people in trouble in defense and offense. 2005 started coming to his own. 2006 was under complete control and incomplete control. And I think that would be a pretty good situation for this team. Also, being 3-0 against Michigan as a starter, I think carries some weight. That was not the case for Bobby Hoying. That was not the case for Joe Germain. And so I think that's also a factor. But when you look at quarterbacks, we saw some great ones under Ryan Day. Troy Smith he was the best until Ryan Day became offensive coordinator, basically.
Yeah, he sort of set the standard. Like, it was Bobby Hoying set the standard for what a great Ohio State quarterback season looked like in 1995. And then Joe Germain sort of reset that standard in 1998. And then Troy Smith kind of reset that standard in 2006. And that was kind of where the standard sat until Ryan Day got to campus at Ohio State. So, yeah, I think, this is one I'm assuming he was, he would have been, as you said, you went through year by year. But if, I'm guessing you did not stop at Steve Bellisari for the Tressel era. So, yeah, I'm guessing he would have been the best fit among those Jim Tressel quarterbacks for sure.
Yeah, and then so my first one, Antonio Hinton. No, Tom. I'm gonna go where I think there is not an issue, but this guy would certainly raise the level of the defense, and there is some concern about the will linebacker position. Even though you've got C.J. Hicks and Sonny Styles, that they should be fine. If I have an opportunity to put A.J. Hawk in this lineup, I am going to go ahead and take that opportunity. And if you want to put him at Mike and move Cody Simon to backup or whatever, like, give me A.J. Hawk in any kind of defense. I'll find a way to make it work. He is proven. And that's the difference between C.J. Hicks and Sonny Styles at linebacker. A.J. Hawk would be a step up from them. Not that they can't do it, but the level at which he played during his career, even in 2002 as a true freshman, playing, I think he had over like 40-some tackles, had an interception, and was just in the right place at the right time. Ended up being the Green Bay Packers all-time leading tackler in the NFL. Just a very, very good number 5 overall draft pick. Could almost do no wrong at Ohio State. Even the Texas loss in Ohio Stadium in 2005, like, he was all over the place with the chasing Vince Young all around. It was an incredible effort.
Yeah, not being able to keep Vince Young to 10 points or whatever like that. There were a lot of people who didn't hold Vince Young to 10 points that year. That was they held Vince Young to 25 points, which should have been enough had they stopped kicking field goals, as I'm sure everyone at that age is old enough to remember that, is yelling about that and yelling about the need for a tight end. They would have put Ricky Dudley on the 2005 Ohio State team if we'd been doing that podcast back in 2005, I'm sure. The only question that I have as far as A.J. Hawk is, does Carson Beck have a sister where we're going to have a real sideshow during a potential national championship game this year? That's the only qualms I would have about adding A.J. Hawk.
And you got to bring back Brent Musburger to do the game, and just any kind of comments that he wants to make in there as well. That's a great question, Tom. I'm going to assume yes, but also maybe too young.
So that's I think that's a very good addition. I'm gonna go. I went a little off the board on the last show with Rob Murphy. I'm gonna go way off the board positionally here. Tony, give me Mike Nugent. Put Mike Nugent on this year's Ohio State team. Yeah, it's a kicker. Yeah, they should be good on defense. Yeah, they should be good on offense. Yeah, they're probably going to score plenty of points. Tony, can you think of a time when Ohio State has really wished they had a really accurate kicker in a big moment in a game? It just feels like maybe you put a Mike Nugent on this year's Ohio State team, and that might prevent you from having the clock strike midnight on your Cinderella story.
Tom, you put a Mike Nugent on this team, and you might have Ryan Day and Chip Kelly deciding to stop at the 40 and settle for a field goal there. I don't know. I think you make it like 2002 Josh Houston or 2001 Mike Nugent kicking the ball into the tunnel. You got to have no faith in that kicker. You got to be super aggressive, getting inside the 10-yard line before you start kicking a field goal. You can't give them Mike Nugent, who, you know what, all we need is 30 yards here. We'll kick a 49-yard field goal. We'll call it a day. Tom, you hate settling for field goals, long field goals especially. This would incentivize them to do that. And you know what? You don't get 4 points for a 50-yarder. You only get 3. Tom, I can't believe you're going against yourself. I understand it. I thought about it. I was even like, you know what? What about an Andy Groom? No. That's loser talk. You don't quit talk. You got to be aggressive. You're shooting for a championship. But I guarantee you, everybody listening right now will be like, oh, man. Yeah, Mike Nugent in that game, please.
Yeah, I mean, we saw them settle for a long field goal in the Peach Bowl a couple of years ago. We have also seen Tony Marshall's on the schedule this year. We know what happens when Mike Nugent is on the team and they play Marshall. It's not great. It's not great for a long, long, long time, and then he pulls their bacon out of the fire. So you can't take that chance with Marshall on the schedule, Tony.
If Ohio State needs a 55-yard field goal to beat Marshall this year, even if they have Mike Nugent and he makes it, everybody needs to be fired. Everybody. Although, if Mike Nugent had been on this team in years past, Parker Fleming would probably still be on the team as well. So think about that before you start saying Mike Nugent should be on this team. But you're saying this team.
I will point out, I waited until the 2024 team to put him on the team. So,
all right. My next one, and I've got a bunch of guys listed here. I went receiver last time. I don't know that I'm going to do that this time. Instead, how about Nick Mangold? All-American center. Well, actually, I don't know that he was All-American offhand. I don't think he was even ever All-Big Ten because he was playing in the Big Ten the same time as Minnesota center Greg Eslinger. But he was a first-rounder, like the 25th or 28th overall pick, one of the great New York Jets of all time. Nick Mangold, a guy that started playing as a true freshman, basically, in 2002, solidifying the offensive line for the Buckeyes, being part of that rotation and being in there, then continues to step in and play better and better, kind of continued on that legacy of really, really good centers at Ohio State, and from the Charles Bentley to him to all of the guys that followed, Tom, basically. Mike Brewster, and then, Corey Lindsley and what we've seen over the years. Yeah, Billy Price, Michael Jordan. No, Michael Jordan? Yes?
No.
Anyway,
sure.
Yeah, so a number of guys that have created this center lineage. He was one of the main guys there. I know Ohio State has two centers with starting experience right now. One of them can play guard. Nick Mangold can play guard. Whatever you want to do, you want to solidify the right side of your line. This is one way to give you more options to do that. One of the best offensive linemen in Ohio State football history.
He feels like a little bit like the Corey Stringer conversation we had on the last show where, they feel pretty good about their tackles right now, and I think they feel pretty good about their center right now. But it would be hard to take Nick Mangold and look at someone who is like a borderline NFL Hall of Famer and not think, yeah, that guy would be an upgrade. I mean, you can put him there and move Seth McLaughlin to right guard or, shift Carson Hinsman to right guard or however you want to do it. Nick Mangold at center is going to give you a very, very good, middle of your offensive line, whoever is playing next to him. Donovan Jackson on one side and fill in the blank on the other. That's going to be a pretty good middle of the offensive line. I didn't have him on my list, but you said his name. I know, ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a very good one. As you said, started very early in his career on a very good Ohio State team and remained good for his entire Ohio State career and then remained very good for his entire NFL career. He was a, multi-time Pro Bowler, I believe, with the Jets. So, yeah, that's a very good one. And that's one where this is, that's not a position where I looked at it and thought this is a spot where they really desperately need an upgrade, but that would certainly be an upgrade. I looked a little more positionally at this, and I think we're gonna end up probably talking about a couple of the same spots we talked about on the last show. Tony, how about Quinn Pitcock in the middle of the 2024 Ohio State defensive line?
First team All-American, kind of a forgotten guy, I think, quite a bit, where he was very disruptive, got into the backfield, was consistent, was reliable. That's a good one. I did not even, I went through all of the starting lineups every year, and it's like I didn't consider that one. So I like that one. A guy who made plays and was impactful and would certainly, we know they could use some depth, and he's a guy that could play either spot for them in this defense. So I like that one. That's Tom. I don't like giving you credit for stuff, for anything. I will give you credit for that one. You could throw in Ryan Pickett as well, 2001, I believe. So on the tail end of the Jim Tressel experience for him. But okay, I'll allow it. Quinn Pitcock, that was a good one. I should have forgotten about him because I did read all the names.
One of those guys who I think is just sort of a real underappreciated Ohio State player from years gone by. A little bit of a Rob Murphy, where you look and it's like, oh, really? He's got a tree in Buckeye Grove? But yeah, it was. You have guys who are bigger names, and I'm sure we will talk about some of those bigger names coming up. But there were guys who were bigger stars on those teams, and guys who got more attention from the on the TV broadcast and all that kind of stuff. But he was one of those guys that just kind of did all the dirty work, and really was an underrated part of some very, very, very good Ohio State defenses.
I'm looking. I have one other, two. No, I've got a few other defensive players. I'll throw one out at you here, Tom. A guy who's actually on this team, if you will, and that is a 3-time All-American James Laurinaitis, who 3-year started at middle linebacker. Cody Simon has started at middle linebacker. Cody Simon has also started at will. So I think either guy can play wherever. But you want to talk about playmakers, and the guy who was always around the ball, made big plays in big games, blew up against Texas in 2006, he was introduced to America by Brent Musburger in that game. And, Ohio State fans will remember him in 2005 coming in for Bobby Carpenter against Michigan, like really early in that game, and stepped up as a true freshman in that one. But he exploded onto the scene in 2006, was an award winner in 06, 07, all Big Ten, All-American in 08. And so I think there's always a place for James Laurinaitis. If he is on this team, Tom, would he have the green dot? Well, it would be Jim Knowles calling the play. So, give him the green dot. Is just like, if he's calling a play himself, no, but he's not. So,
yeah, he would be. We know that he and Jim Knowles work reasonably well together already, so that would be a big plus for him having the green dot. But yeah, he's someone who, it's funny to listen to him talk, and I don't remember if this was during an on-camera interview or just, during a camp or something, but he was kind of joking that, if he was a recruit during 2024, there was no way he would have gotten an offer from Ohio State. And, he is a little bit of a throwback, and he was a really underrated player coming out of high school. He was like a middling 3-star guy out of Minnesota that was kind of a who dat in some ways in terms of the recruiting back then, where it was not quite as universal and not quite as a national a recruiting world as it is now. But he, obviously got on the field, and I think the 2005 Michigan game is remembered as, and then he was the hero of the game. It was like, no, I think he had like a tackle and a half or something like that. But he was, he was sort of thrust into the spotlight in that moment, and didn't have a terrible performance by any means. But then, second year, boom, 2006, he was immediately a really, really important, impactful player on some very, very good Ohio State defenses. So yeah, that's he's a good answer there as well. I don't think you need him and AJ Hawk, but either one of them I think is a perfectly acceptable answer for this question. How about Tony? I know we were only going to do 3, and we've done 3, but the other name, I did have Laurinaitis on my list. The other name I had on my list, Ben Hartsock. Again, you're kind of looking at a tight end, and he was on some of those Tressel teams that really did not move the ball down the field and were not particularly prolific passing attacks, and still had like a 33 reception season as a tight end. Good blocker, good all-around tight end, had a nice pro career. Like he's someone who I think you put him on this team, and yeah, you're playing more 2 tight end sets if you've got Ben Hartsock on this year's team than if you don't.
I will see your Ben Hartsock, and I agree with that. I will raise you a Jake Ballard, who made a huge catch in the Rose Bowl against Oregon. A big target, went on to play. Well, they both went on to play a very long time in the NFL. So yeah, I had a tight end in there as well, just in my also receiving votes. I think Jake Ballard was another kind of maybe an underrated guy that was really good, but also split some time and was a good blocker, good receiver, good all-around guy. I think with the offense, aside from tight ends, now we can maybe go look at receivers, because we have not talked about Santonio Holmes. We have not talked about Ted Ginn. And if you want an offense, why wouldn't you want one of those 2 guys? And again, it speaks to the people that are already at Ohio State this year, the receivers that are there this year, that for me, like either of these guys would be luxuries. You'd love to have them. I think the bigger question is if you could only have one, Tom, who are you taking? Are you taking Ted Ginn with all of his speed or slow Santonio Holmes?
Boy, that's a great question. And I think Ted Ginn to me is in the same Joey Galloway, like time machine category where Ted Ginn's Ohio State career feels like we missed out on seeing what Ted Ginn in a really good, aggressive offense with a great quarterback would have looked like for, a decent chunk of his career. Because, 2004, he was there. The quarterback play was not very good. 2005, the quarterback play was better. 2006, he had a really good final season. The only problem with bringing him back to the future is, boy, you lose all those Ted Ginn kickoff returns. Maybe you're making more plays in the punt game than you do. Just the kickoff has just become such a non-factor in football. You wonder if you lose some of that. But man, I would love to see Ted Ginn in modern football, safely, away from the conservative Jim Tressel era, and with a quarterback who can throw it to him. And boy, what would he do? And then also, Tony, we get another crack potentially at seeing him run the 40 at the NFL Combine, because that's another great what if of Ohio State football history.
Even right now, he's going to run a sub 4 or 5.5. I guarantee it. But you can tell him, hey, Ted, we're doing the fair catch. Make sure wherever you are, just fair catch it. And he'd be like, yeah, okay, watch me fair catch it. There's no way. He's not going to fair catch. He's going to fielding something at the 10. He's not going to fair catch it. He's going to take it and go. So I think maybe begrudgingly, or you're going to have to bring the Ohio State special teams, like you're going to have to drag them into kickoff returns by bringing him back. So maybe this would be one of the bigger reasons to bring him back to this team, is because then it would force some usage of the kickoff return, because it's a better game when you're returning kicks and making things happen. And that's something that he did very well, even though he was a more prolific punt returner than a kickoff returner. But still, anytime he had the ball in his hands, you're like, oh, this could be something. And when it was incredible. And that was the early days of the DVR. If you might remember way back then. And it's like, he would just keep games saved where he went off. Like the Michigan State game is in 2004 as a freshman with those 3 touchdowns. His first touchdown catch against Indiana, which was a pass to the sideline that got batted up, and he grabbed it and then was able to take off. And, I think there was like a punt return against Wisconsin where he went into a crowd of Badgers and disappeared, and then came out the other end and was like gone. It was incredible to watch. Like him and Devin Hester are 2 of the all-time great college football players ever.
Well, and if we can go back in time slightly from now, I wouldn't mind seeing Ted Ginn on the Ohio State offense in the Cotton Bowl against Missouri after Devin Brown goes down. Because we saw Ted Ginn have to kind of make it work with duct tape and baling wire on offense against a former Missouri conference mate in Oklahoma State in the Alamo Bowl in 2004, after Troy Smith was suspended and Justin Zwick pulled his hamstring, and they didn't want to burn Todd Beckman's gray shirt, so they had to put Ted Ginn in at quarterback, and he just did they just ran the run around and do something cool play, and it worked shockingly frequently. And he had a run in that game where I think he ran, 70 yards, like from up, back, one sideline, the other sideline, and probably only gained like 3 yards or something like that, like actually vertically. But man, it was a really entertaining 3-yard gain. So yeah, I would take Ted Ginn on that. And, Santonio Holmes, yeah, I'll take Santonio Holmes too. That would, he's another one where he kind of got lost in some ways because Ginn got so much hype and Ginn got so much attention just because of the really explosive plays. But man, you go back and you watch some of those, the really big games, and Santonio Holmes is making big plays in so many of those big games. Huge plays against Michigan in 2005 up in Ann Arbor to help win that game. But yeah, there were you could take either of those guys and end up with a pretty fun addition to this year's Ohio State offense.
I got one other name way off the board for you. Mike Stafford.
All right.
Walk-on left guard who was instrumental in helping Maurice Clarett run Dave over and over again until he got hurt and the offense bogged down a little bit. But just a name to throw out there. You're looking for a guard. Now, I'm not saying that he was the full-time, all-time type of guy, but he was very effective at what he did. He could hit one pitch, and they kept throwing it to him, and he would knock that pitch out of the park. Just one additional name on offense. I got two other names on defense. Give me somebody else that you have on your list there.
Well, how about Malcolm Jenkins in terms of a corner? We talked about this on the last show. This is not a team where there is a tremendous need to add folks to the team, to bulk up the corner room. The corner room is just fine. I think, though, Malcolm Jenkins is one of those, like, you add a little Malcolm Jenkins to anything and it probably improves the quality of that thing. He feels like he's there. I've got a safety as well, but why don't you do your next one?
Well, I like the Malcolm Jenkins thing because we know he was an All-American corner at Ohio State. Played corner, then eventually moves to safety. I think he would be really interesting as a nickel in this defense and could help out in the run game if needed as well. But boy, you put him in this defense and him and Denzel Burke at corner, I like that one. You would have the three-man rotation again for sure. Another linebacker, Matt Wilhelm, All-American middle linebacker, 2002. I think he might have been back in 2003 along with everybody else. Again, I don't think they need a middle linebacker, but when you have All-American types that are available, it's hard to say, nah, we're good over here. And another one, I'll throw out there, Will Smith, Sr., who was incredible, did a lot of the, some of the jack things that we've seen 2 years ago. He was one of the first guys that I remember as defensive end. They would line him up at linebacker. They would back him off the line, have him, move around a little bit as like a linebacker type and an attack. And it would just force the offense to be concerned about him more, not know where he's coming from. Really, really good player, eventually a first-round pick for the Saints. But they don't necessarily need defensive ends, but there are some defensive ends in the 2000s and beyond where you could sure use them, though.
I do like the idea that on the last show we talked about Lorenzo Styles playing with his kids, and now you've got Will Smith potentially playing with his kids. Got James Laurinaitis on both eras, and there's a lot of crossover here between these two teams. The last name I had on my list, Donte Whitner. I don't know how long Donte Whitner would be playing in some of these games. Known as a big hitter, I don't know how forgiving the targeting rule would be or how he would adapt to that in the modern world of college football. But a Donte Whitner as an eraser on the back end of this defense. The safety position, they've got depth there, Tony. So if he does get kicked out, you've got plenty of other quality depth back there. But yeah, I think he's someone who would just there's a reason I didn't say him first, second, or third, but it would be a fun addition to this year's team.
Yeah, that's the reason I didn't go with Zach Dumas with the Cooper era players. But I still think Donte Whitner was one of the best I've ever seen at just blowing up screens. He was really, really, really good at it. There are more screens, different screens in today's game, which would make it even more interesting to watch him attack. I also think he could play nickel just fine. Came to Ohio State as a 5-star corner and could have done that, but they liked what they had at safety with him. And so I think he's a guy that, again, could play every down. If you want him at nickel, you want him at safety, wherever you want him, he would be an outstanding addition to this defense. And again, the secondary that is on this Ohio State team, I think, is the main reason. It's the only reason why I have not really thought about defensive backs adding them, because I think you could add other players that would, from other positions, that would help them. But they're so good in the secondary, like, it would still be an upgrade. It would still be a help. Like, do they need Malik Hooker next year? Like, in the next show, like, Malik, we don't need to go there yet, but do you need Malik Hooker? No. Could you use him? Of course. But we'll save that for the next show. We may talk about that. Who knows? Anyway, that will do it for this one. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and give us the heads up, the thumbs up. Subscribe if you have not yet to the channel. Find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Become a member. Say hello to us over there, talking Ohio State Buckeyes quite a bit. And especially now as the season is fast approaching, we've got big plans for you. We've got plenty of stuff to talk about coming up. We will finish this series with a look at the Urban Meyer era players that could take this 2024 Ohio State team over the top. So look for that one in the coming days as well. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.